Welcome to PsychWSigmund, the podcast, where we explore the fascinating world of psychology and uncover the secrets of the human mind. I'm your host, Sigmund, and today we're going to delve into a topic that's both intriguing and essential for personal growth: cognitive bias modification therapy. Cognitive bias modification therapy is a psychological approach that aims to help individuals identify and modify their biased thinking patterns, which can lead to improved mental health and resilience. But what exactly are cognitive biases? Simply put, cognitive biases refer to the systematic errors or distortions in our thinking, perception, or memory that can influence our judgments and decisions. These biases can be thought of as mental shortcuts or heuristics that help us navigate the world more efficiently, but they can also lead to errors and limitations in our thinking. The concept of cognitive bias modification therapy emerged from the field of cognitive psychology, which focuses on the study of mental processes such as perception, attention, memory, language, problem-solving, and decision-making. One of the key researchers who contributed to our understanding of cognitive biases is Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel laureate in economics who has spent decades studying how people think and make decisions. His work, along with that of his colleague Amos Tversky, laid the foundation for the development of cognitive bias modification therapy. So, how does cognitive bias modification therapy work? The approach typically involves identifying specific cognitive biases that an individual is prone to, such as confirmation bias or anchoring bias, and then using techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy or acceptance and commitment therapy to help the person become more aware of these biases and learn strategies to overcome them. For example, a therapist might use motivational interviewing to help an individual identify their values and goals, and then work with them to develop a plan for modifying their biased thinking patterns. Let's consider a few examples to illustrate how cognitive bias modification therapy can be applied in real-life situations. Suppose we have a manager named John who tends to attribute his employees' mistakes to their character rather than to situational factors. This is an example of the fundamental attribution error, a common cognitive bias that can lead to unfair judgments and poor decision-making. Through cognitive bias modification therapy, John can learn to recognize when he's engaging in this bias and develop alternative explanations for his employees' behavior, leading to more effective leadership and better relationships with his team. Another example is Sarah, who struggles with anxiety and tends to engage in catastrophic thinking, blowing things out of proportion and assuming the worst-case scenario. This is an example of the availability heuristic, a cognitive bias that can lead to exaggerated fears and anxieties. Through cognitive bias modification therapy, Sarah can learn to recognize when she's engaging in this bias and develop more balanced thinking patterns, leading to reduced anxiety and improved mental health. Research has shown that cognitive bias modification therapy can be effective in reducing symptoms of anxiety and depression, improving relationships, and enhancing decision-making skills. For instance, a study published in the Journal of Consulting and Clinical Psychology found that cognitive bias modification therapy was associated with significant reductions in depressive symptoms and improvements in cognitive functioning. Another study published in the Journal of Behavioral Therapy and Experimental Psychiatry found that cognitive bias modification therapy was effective in reducing anxiety symptoms and improving quality of life. One of the key challenges in implementing cognitive bias modification therapy is the concept of cognitive dissonance, which occurs when we're confronted with information that contradicts our existing beliefs or values. This can lead to feelings of discomfort or anxiety, making it difficult for individuals to change their thinking patterns. To overcome this challenge, therapists use techniques such as values-based action planning and motivational interviewing to help individuals develop a sense of purpose and motivation for changing their biased thinking. Recent research has also highlighted the importance of considering cultural and individual differences in cognitive bias modification therapy. For example, A study published in the Journal of Cross-Cultural Psychology found that cognitive biases can vary significantly across cultures, highlighting the need for culturally sensitive interventions. Another study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that individual differences in personality traits such as openness to experience and conscientiousness can influence an individual's susceptibility to cognitive biases. As we conclude today's episode, I want to emphasize the significance of cognitive bias modification therapy in modern psychology. By acknowledging and addressing our cognitive biases, we can cultivate more adaptive thinking patterns, leading to improved mental health and resilience. As my colleague in the field, Dr. Kahneman, once said, "The human mind is a wonderful thing, but it's also a very imperfect thing." By recognizing these imperfections and working to modify them, we can strive for greater objectivity, empathy, and understanding in our personal and professional lives. That's all for today's Psych with Sigmund. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, may your ego find balance between pleasure and reality.